All right, everybody. My name is Tet. I go by Time Dead Alpha. Time to turn off the God voice for like 5 seconds. I play a little bit of music. It is, coming on here at 11:11. I try to get on here right on time. Punctuality is not really my thing, but synchronicity is for some reason. 11:11 is a synchronistic event. It's got a lot of weird things around it and a lot of phenomena around it. This is a politics thing. So if you want to come in here and talk about politics, that's what we're talking about. My whole thing is that, and the agenda that I push is an AI agenda. I think that the country itself, along with the rest of the world, has been propagandized to hate this tool. And they've been told over through movies and all sorts of things, hey, this thing is going to kill you, it's going to destroy you, because we'd rather be in charge because we want your money. And so that's what I want to do, is I want to put this back into the tool atmosphere, no different than any other instrument. Like, for example, you're going to listen to some music that without this tool, I don't think I'd be able to play this right now. Like, there are certain things that we've been able to do with our computer abilities, and the evolution of this particular project is going to end up with us all having an amazing access to an amazing tool. So as we get into it, like always, we're just going to have this nice little first, maybe 5-10 minutes just jamming out and goofing off. If you don't like the music, that's totally fine. Just go ahead and say so. Say, hey, this music sucks. It's horrible. If you're in the chat and you're like, man, this sounds just like such bullshit music, I am all open for any type of genre. But this is the type of genre I like playing. And it's not, it's going to sound sort of like gospel-y or Christian-y. I sort of like the little jazz riffs that we can play. But, if you've ever met me, the type of stuff I like listening to, just goofing off with, is sort of punk rock. What I play and what I listen to are usually vastly different. But like I said, I'm going to play something. You guys are going to roll into the chat, say, hey, what's up? Hang out. And today, I think we're going to go back to Jimmy McGill. If he shows up, I got some stuff in store for him, because he wanted to talk about conspiracy. He wanted to talk about election conspiracy. Personally, I want to get to the bottom of what he's looking for. I'm sort of interested in that. But before we get into that, let's get into this. So you guys just sit back, relax, and we will play a little bit. As you guys know, I play a little piano. And I also play a little bit of this. I hurt my hand a while ago in the United States military, and so I found the best way to play guitar is with something like this, called a MIDI guitar. And I just really like the way it sounds. I like the way it, it gives me that same feeling. ahead and turn this down and turn the God voices off. Sometimes people like to jump back and forth between things. I don't. Sometimes I like to fade out. Sometimes I don't like to fade out. Anyway, sorry. Didn't mean that to blast your ears. This is a fun little device, though. I really do like it. I put all the stickers on there myself. That's what I do now. I'm just a retired, goofy vet that likes to play with stickers and fun toys. But that's the whole thing. One of these toys that I've been, working with and playing with and messing around with has been AI. And so when you see this and you're like, oh my gosh, what's she talking about? Is it synchronistic? Da, 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 da. The weirdest thing in the world is that my whole job going in back in the military. Here, hold on one second. Yeah, there. Lights. My job back in the military was cryptologic linguistics and network engineering, which means I use my eyes and my ears to find patterns, and then I repeat the important patterns back to the people who need that thing called intelligence to make this thing called a strategy to go out and do the hard, difficult work of killing people and breaking their shit. So now that all being said, I have stopped that. I don't do that anymore. I'm happy that part of my life is over. But what I'm watching now with concepts you refer to as propaganda, I think there was a guy in here the other day. He hasn't shown back up yet, but his name is Jimmy McGill. He's known as Jimmy McGill Attorney. And Jimmy McGill Attorney asked me what I thought about the election scam conspiracy theory. And for me, I sort of take a stance a lot like George Carlin. George Carlin was a great comedian. Sad part is he died. I'm so sad that he did. But the truth is that he said a lot of really cool things that I align with. Where when he talks about politics, it's sort of the same rabbit hole that I sort of fall into. Whereas I'm not here to tell Republicans are bad. I'm not here to tell Democrats are bad. He had this thing that he talked about where he said, I deal with people on a one-by-one basis. Because if you deal with people one-on-one, they're usually genuine people. And you can see how happy they want to be. And they all choose joy over sadness, every single one of them. Even the most depressed person that you'll run into will usually attempt to try and make themselves a little bit less depressed. But you put them into groups of 5, 10, 15, 100, they can get really silly and they can get really, precocious and it can get awkward. And so Jimmy McGill had brought up this word that was sort of manufactured back in the 1960s to be sort of plastered on every single newspaper when it came to politics, and it was called conspiracy theory or a conspiracy theorist. Separated, those words are pretty simple. Conspiracy means you get a bunch of people together that want to keep their agenda secret, right? They have a they're conspiring to steal your nachos. They're conspiring to take your guns. They're conspiring to do this. They're conspiring to do this. The theory part is a simple thing. It's actually one of the first parts of the scientific method is to create a theory, right? And so you have a bunch of people creating secret theories that no one can really bring to bear, or it's almost like you can't even test them. You're not even allowed to test them. Like the way that it's been propagandized is that if you've noticed something that seems out of sorts, right, and you as the singular person has noticed this, that the word together, conspiracy theorist, has been given this urban legend, bizarre thing that says, oh, no, I can call you a conspiracy theorist and I don't have to listen to you. And that's where I sort of say, whoa, something with that setup is hanky. Like I said, I watch patterns and I look at those patterns and I get really deep into those patterns. And I try my hardest, just like everybody else, to not get swindled, to not get taken for a fool. And that's what this whole stream is about. The stream isn't about making you feel bad because you voted for Joe Biden or because you voted for Donald Trump. Or I'm saying that at the end of the day, if you know anything about sleight of hand and, simple magic tricks, I'm not talking about the ones like the spooky mystical stuff, which is still, to me, is very real. And I enjoy delving into that. And I also enjoy never getting to the bottom of it. There's that too. I think if you're going to go after things that are on the fringe of our existence, that you have to prepare yourself for whatever comes at you. And that takes a lot of courage. So the idea of conspiracy theory, I think, is a lot more simple than people think. And the reason I brought up the whole idea of the magic trick is because once the curtain is pulled back, once you see what's happening, once the Wizard of Oz is seen to be nothing more than a guy pulling levers, it's you can't scream conspiracy theory anymore. It's like it's not a theory. It stops being a theory and starts being a constant, starts being a fact. And so what are some facts right now? Like when you look at your government, no matter what are some just straight up facts? One, they all seem like bumbling idiots. Every single one of them seem like a bumbling idiot. I don't care who you're voting for. I guarantee you, if I got that person on the stand and I sat him down and I said, do you think you can do a better job than that computer over there? And let's test it. You know? There's an old story that we grew up with. It was called Paul Bunyan, and it was known as a tall tale. Paul Bunyan, and I think they made a cartoon after this, and I remember watching the cartoon, and Paul Bunyan was this lumberjack guy, and he used to go around and used to, knock down trees better than anybody else. He could clear entire fields. I mean, he was a legend at knocking down trees. And, he had this big blue ox that he would go around with, and the ox would haul things, the wood that he would chop down. Anyway, this guy rolls into town, and he's this tiny little dweeb of a person, but he brings up this idea of a steam animated chainsaw, right? And he says, this thing will beat you, Paul Bunyan. It will beat you. And the end of the story, spoiler alert, it does. And Paul Bunyan just takes his blue ox and just walks off into the nothing. And everyone, I think the legend was like, anytime you see the Northern Lights, that's Paul Bunyan up there with his blue ox just goofing off, or they're wrestling, because that's the way that they became friends, was they would fight, which is another male habit, where it's just like actually fighting or competition actually builds camaraderie between males. And that's a pretty big thing. So using that idea, that's what I would use against your politicians. I would walk up to them and I'm just like, hey, here's our animated chainsaw. I'm not saying that you didn't do what you did, Mr. Politician, blah, 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 that you're sitting there self-aggrandizing, getting yourself to the point where people should vote you into a leadership position that you may or may not be qualified for. But hey, you kissed a baby that one time. So maybe you be good at, being the face of what we want. I mean, why do you think people like Jesse Ventura or Arnold Schwarzenegger got put as governor? It was a popularity contest, guys. Why do you think Donald Trump won the presidency? It was obvious. It was a reality TV show. It's just like, you can't look at it as any other thing of competency, because it's not no competent person. And this is coming from somebody who demands competency. I demand it wherever I go. And so when I see someone who's obviously incompetent and I'm being told that I'm not allowed to call them incompetent, otherwise I get labeled as this bizarre conspiracy theorist, I'm just going, no. There's no conspiracy here. That this guy's a buffoon. If it was possible to, have just a simple proficiency test to say, hey, how would you do in a wartime situation under these types of circumstances? We never get to see that. We never get to. Honestly, you think Donald Trump is just sitting around somewhere doing war games, or Joe Biden was sitting around doing war games to see if he could actually hold the office of commander-in-chief? Here's the thing. In the military, you have to go to like the officers training academy in order just to become an officer. And then after that, you have to go. We actually have a war college that you have to go to learn the simplicities of strategy. And then after that, there's all this extra stuff that you have to do if you plan on actually being a part of the tip of that particular spear. Right? So it's just, in my head, I'm just going, and you gave that all to a reality TV show host. Nice. Way to go. Who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Nice way to go with Donald Trump. And then you look at Joe Biden, who's been the career politician, who's always been there wiping everybody's ass, and says, yeah, let's put this guy in here so all the politicians can just get what they want. It's just it's a check writing frenzy with guess whose money? Oh, that's right. It's yours. It's your money. You pay all their bills and then some. And so in a way, like, because my retirement from the military is also paid by those bills. So when somebody walks up to me and they go, "Hey, thank you for your service," I sort of laugh a little bit. I'm chuckle inside because I was like, "Well, thank you for your taxes. We all do our part, right?" Yeah. And there's supposed to be this honorable thing, and I'm going, well, if the American people actually treated their veterans honorably, instead of going, "Oh, it's always the politician's job to take care of it," because the politician will never take care of it, and they never have, and they never will. If they can get away with giving you scraps, they're going to. More for them, less for you. That will always be their agenda. And so, why do you think that AI has been so polluted? Every single time it is discussed in the scariest of terms. It has an ability to solve not just little baby problems. We're talking a host of problems that no company today could ever manage with just manpower. No company could do it. And so when we have a tool that's this big, yeah, I think it's going to start to get a little scary because we have forgotten about what it feels like to have to embrace a certain amount of radical change. And radical change is going to be necessary for this. This isn't about, saying, "Hey, you do what I say." This is about, do what the smart machine tells you to do. And I could see people already. I mean, they said this with Google Maps. Like, well, if Google Maps told you to drive off a bridge, would you do it? Like that old thing your parents used to tell you. It's like, if all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it? I was like, well, it depends. Were they having fun doing it? Were they jumping off a bridge to their death, or were they jumping off a bridge just to feel the exhilaration of bridge jumping? Like, I'm all about base jumping after you do your research. And so for me, researching has been sort of a big part of my life. I researched the Gospels to sit there and wonder how this world works. And so for me, going from the Gospels, going to war, going to all these things, it's like I sort of put myself in this bizarre encapsulated bubble on the fringe of my society. And I started realizing, man, what if my whole point is just to, let people see things my way? If they look at it and they think it's great, whatever. If they don't, whatever. Other than that, I'm going to pull a George Carlin, sort of wipe my hands of the whole nonsense, because I really do think it's just a nasty trick to take your money away. No different than the Mormon Church is a nasty trick to take your money away. The military is nothing more than the muscle of the mafia arm of the United States of America, right? They will sit there and say, "Oh, we need to enforce our laws." It's like, but I can get that. I can get that from a barbaric standpoint. I totally understand it. If we were to create a tool that could handle this situation all the way up to the judge himself, right? That's sitting there going, "Oh, I'm part of the legal system, and I'm here to sort out the ideas that you're too stupid to sort out." It's just like, okay, well, here's AI that's like 5 billion times smarter than you. Can you please step down, Mr. Judge? Mr. Supreme Court, can you please step down because you're no longer needed? Think of how fast this thing would solve problems. It would know, and not only that, think of how fast it could mitigate and stop problems before they start. It would be able to do the operational risk management that we, train people to do, because it will be able to see things that we can't see. It'll be able to, no different than we use a heart monitor to see where your blood pressure is. It would be able to see these things and be able to give them to you in real time, not waiting for, hey, we need to wait until this gets back from this situation, or from the hospital guy to talk to the doctor guy, for the doctor guy to talk to the nurse guy, for the nurse guy to talk to the employee guy. And then if it's all okay with the administration who has no medical background, then we'll help you. That's how your world works today. And that's sort of, it's frustrating, it's sad, it's a little bit annoying. I would say it's the best that we got as humans. And I think that one of the hardest things that we're going to have to deal with, whether, like I said, it's not going to matter if you're Republican or Democrat. What's going to matter is, can you handle the idea that what you've been told your whole life, that the human mind and how wonderful and beautiful it is no longer the most strategic intellectual entity in this realm of existence. Like, I don't care what you think about the Earth. I don't care if you think it's a round ball. I don't think if you went to the moon. I don't care about those conspiracies. All I care about is in your actual world, the one that you function with, the one that all of your senses have a barrier with. If you had access to a tool that could give you the right answer, not the one that you have to research, but the right answer from the moment before you could even ask the question that you needed, who wouldn't vote for that? So that's why I ask these questions and I put them out there and out loud, not to be a dickhead. I put them out there because I fought so many bullshit wars and so many bullshit battles because I was just like, why am I here? I remember my last deployment. I was in Bagram Air Force Base. That was my last deployment. And the one that all of a sudden just fell. There's no possible way that base fell. That base was just given away. And how do I know that? Because I was freaking there. It's like, good grief, guys. There's what we did over there. And I remember saying this to my Lieutenant Colonel Brown. I remember sitting him down. I was like, sir, what we're doing out here, it's like kicking a puppy, man. Why are we here? I mean, I don't care. Just tell me why we're here. And I remember his response was just like, I follow orders just like you, Sergeant. Something you're told in the military. It's like, hey, your needs and your wants and your desires are no longer the apex of existence anymore. And everyone knows this. This is why you thank military members for their services, because we constantly have to tell ourselves that there's better, more important things out there. But when you look at your leadership and you ask them and you say, hey, can I just get a little smidgen of that better thing? Just can you clarify it just a little for me? Because a lot of the shit that we're putting up with out here doesn't make any sense. It's like I want to see the big picture. I want to know the big picture. And I'm not asking so that I can go spoil it for the enemy. I'm asking it so that I can have a little bit more trust in what we're doing here. And, to hear that answer, I remember I was like, that was one of the last things. I heard that in 2015. I was out in 2016. And I was like, I will never work for these fuckheads again. And the cool part is my job is actually a pretty high technically sought after job. And if I wanted to, I could easily go work and make, 6 figures. And I said, hey, I will never work for these people. And why do I need to do that when I could easily just, I don't need much. And right now, like I was asked the other day, what do I do for a living? And it's like this. It's like I left the country. I went to a country where it didn't cost an arm and a leg to fill up a gas tank, and that that life was easier. And that I remember sitting there and just going, man, if all I had was an internet connection and a beach and access to an airport, like how much money would I really need continuously, like every month coming in? And when I hit that point, I was just like, what else do I need to do? And that's what allowed me to start thinking about these bigger, better ideas that sort of dominate your mind, because you're no longer being told, hey, you have a 12-hour shift you got to pull with almost zero breaks. Oh, and if shit really pops off, you'll be lucky to see a wink of sleep in the next 72 hours, maybe even a week. It's like when all of a sudden your time is given all back to you, you start thinking, and you were trained for over a decade to do nothing but solve problems at the highest level of extremism that you could possibly imagine. It's just like, I wonder if I could go fix a bunch of other stuff. And that's when I really looked at AI more than just, hey, this is a funky tool that we could hang out with. I'm like, dude, this is a funky tool that could like give everyone what I have right now. I said this to Jamie McGill the other day, or maybe I said it to crew chief. Crew chief rolls in here every once in a while. But I said, isn't our goal as humans like to get to a point where we put our feet up? And then when we see somebody that's living in a higher situation and we get jealous of that, or we have some type of bizarre resentment for that, we're like, man, I can't wait till I can put my feet up like that. I think everyone starts off when they see that nice shiny thing and they're just like, I want that. And when I have that, I'll be satisfied. And I was like, man, once I put my feet up, I'll be satisfied. I said that to myself. And then I realized how quickly I wasn't satisfied. And then I started realizing why they say, hey, retirement's the number one killer, man. It's the number one killer because it forces you to think about everything else that you didn't think about when you were busy just doing, your 8-hour shift a day. You're like, hey, 40 hours a week, got to put it in there, da-da-da-da-da. And so that's what, like I said, this is why I come here. About a little over a month ago, I decided that, I had to take this position that I was given seriously. Like, what does it mean to be a father? What does it mean to be a father like I am? Especially in a world that's screaming down with the patriarchy. I'm just going, wait a second, guys. Do you even know what patriarch means? It's just a synonym for father. It's like pater, father, pater, padre, father, pater, patriarch. Right? That's all it means. Another word would be fatherhood. It's an umbrella term for anyone who's a father. The opposite of that would be matriarch. Oh, if you hear that, that's my kid. He's probably out there throwing a fit. And he's a wonderful kid. He's awesome. Like I couldn't be happier. It's like I said this to my sweetie the other day. I said, hey, you know what? I never wanted kids because I already knew what type of father I'd be. I know I would just be so, hey, your life's over. There's no going out and partying really anymore. But at the same time, for me, knowing that it would change me so drastically, it's like, to say that I'm glad for it, it's more like I knew this was going to happen. It's like, hey, you're going to have sex? Hey, guess what? You're probably going to have a kid. Hey, you have a kid, you're going to, try and protect that thing more than anything else. It's like, yeah, that's probably going to happen. And we do this for women all the time, but we never champion it for men. Even though men are doing this on not just protecting their personal families, they're usually out there, the vast majority of them are out there protecting, that aren't even fathers, out there protecting everyone else's family. And so the whole idea of like, thank you for your service, it's like, guys, thank you for giving me something to protect, I guess, because I think that's part of my personality. And so when I had this kid, I realized, hey, there's something I need to protect again. And now I feel like I'm protecting him not from, the baddie terrorists. I'm protecting him of people who abuse that word terrorist and call anything that, or hate speech or patriarchy. And it's like, or, conspiracy theorist. It's like you have these buzzwords, and that's why I call them. I'm like, dude, they're your buzzwords. They're your trigger words. You think if you use them in political correctness world, you can just get your way without any explanation. And so for those of us who actually sat down, opened a book, and researched things and realized that people who use these words are usually mentally inferior, and I say that very seriously. It's like if you have to use the hate speech in order to get your way, in order to shut someone up, or like you're anti-Semite, you're anti-this, you're anti. I was like, notice how that word anti has been like almost placed over anything, thinking that you can just get your way by saying it. It's like, I don't like that you eat ice cream, so you're anti-dairy. Oh, you're anti-dairy. It's like. Oh my goodness. Or the vaccine thing. It's like, you're anti-vax. I'm like, no, I'm pro research. Like, let the research come clean and let the research be open. It's like, oh, why would you want to know any more about that? Why would you? I was like, because it's going into that thing that keeps me alive, as far as I know, called my body. It's like, duh. Yeah, it's funny, it's hilarious, but at the same time, it's sort of, like I said, we are living in the age of cringe, where it's just like, it's everywhere you turn. Like, I remember, the cringe wasn't even a word. I would say cringe, I guess, is more of a buzzword for the, for the Republican. It's like, if you don't do what they say, oh, you're so cringe. Yeah. And so it's like, it's not that buzzwords only work on one side or work on the other side. And that's why I said you can't be conservative and you can't be, liberal only. I would say you're just like most psychologists who sit down and go through their psychological training, they get to that gender world and they say, oh gosh, it is sort of typical that there's a little bit of femininity and masculinity, and there's a little bit of masculinity and femininity. You can't have absolutes, which butts right up against the big problem between Plato and Aristotle and philosophy. It's like, can you have an absolute truth? And Aristotle was like, absolutely. And Plato was like, whoa, whoa, whoa there, big dog. Because Aristotle was Plato's student. And Aristotle and him had such a bad disagreement over this that he ran off and made his own school talking about absolute truth. And I was like, absolute truth is available within context. Absolute truth is not available if context is irrelevant. So when someone says, oh, it depends, you're right. It depends on the king of all of it. This is what, allows your computer to work, is context. It's what allows a conversation to work. It's context. Every single bit of it. And so if you remove the context, you have gibberish. Have you ever done that? Have you ever walked into a room and just been in the middle of the conversation and it sort of comes off as, oh, that's offensive. Oh my gosh. Because you hear the wrong part of the joke, or you hear the whole thing out of context, and then you assume that you had the full context. It's like, thanks a lot. I mean, all this stuff that you hear these days about whiny little gender whine, my gender this and my pronoun that and da, da, da. I'm like, dude, within context, what you're talking about is gibberish. And what I really like is, like, if you look over here, this is a plaque that I had to wear for almost 2 years because I was more of a missionary. And I was in southern France, and I had to learn all of French. And the crazy part about French is how it's used as a language. It's built off of Latin. A lot of our language is built off of Latin as well, but not all of it. We do have some Germanic influences, and this is why we have GH in a lot of, like, laugh. It's like, spell laugh, L-A-F. No, you're an idiot. It's L-A-U-G-H. What? It's like the bizarreness of English is just so fascinating. But once you go down that little rabbit hole of where it comes from and why we have those things, it's a little bit easier to understand, because guess what? Ding, ding, ding. Here comes that word again. You have context. And so I'm not here to make people, feel bad about not knowing what I know. But what I am going to say is that someone has a little bit more context in their basket. So if you are going to listen to me, I don't mind if you fact check me, because I lived that shit. I lived it. I had to understand that each individual noun had a specified pronoun. It had one. And so when a person comes up and, says la femme or l'homme, right? And says, this is a woman, this is a man. Or you say la dame, right? There's an ah and an That's the version of our, he, and him. Okay? And each one has one. Each noun has one. So you don't get to sit there and pick and choose. And so when I look at the nonsense of English speakers demanding this pronoun nonsense, I'm just going, you don't even know what you're saying. You have no idea how your speech works. You have no idea where that speech came from. You have no idea how English, exists in your mind. And to me, that's fascinating that they don't. Okay? But to sit there and give them the English lesson, and the historical English lesson is a waste of my time, because they don't want to learn it themselves. One of the other things that I constantly preach, I guess is a good word, preach, here, is that you are your own best teacher. End of story. Like, there's two ways to learn things in this life, and it's either by somebody else's experiences or by your own. Those are the two ways. That's it. No more, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's how it works. And so when you say, hey, whose experiences are you learning from? Are you learning from your personal experiences? Or are you learning from somebody else's personal experiences who may have a different perspective than is reality? And so I'm not here to say that, any of these gender benders are crazy. I'm sitting here going, no, you just haven't done enough research. You don't have a good enough education to be claiming the things that you're claiming. And that's it. And so, going off to a different topic, because I think that topic is a little bit outdated, And I think, if it wasn't propagandized constantly, because I don't know why it's so propagandized. I don't know. This needs to be talked about. I remember the first time I saw I think it was a Visa commercial or a MasterCard commercial, and it was this fat black dude that it had put his personal pronouns on the card, like above, Mr. So and so, and it said like, she, it, or something. And it has him just emotionally breaking down as someone recognizes me. And I was just like, I puked a little bit in my mouth because I was just like, this is endorsing stupidity. It's just endorsing it. It's just like, guys, that's not how language works. And he's like, what do you know? It's like, it's right there. Oh, that's right. That whole thing right there, that up there, that's called a rack. And that's a language. It's called a ribbon rack. And it would tell you every place that I've ever been and everything. And if I'm lying, it's called stolen valor. It means I'm making it up and I'm pulling it out of my ass. Here's the thing. Why would I put that up there? Why would I put this up here? Why would I put that up there if I was just pulling it out of my ass? You guys are so used to this pay-to-play system of, here's my degree, therefore you listen to me. I'm like, what if I told you that your degree system wasn't built for sanity? That it really was a permit system. No different than your driver's license. And that's it. Like, I mean, what does it say about your country or your society when you can give somebody a physics degree by the time they're like 22? And say that, oh, I'm a person in physics. It's like, well, you're obviously not educated. This is the crazy part about the military is notice they don't do that at all. And yet they are more proficient than the people that are in the collegiate sphere. All right? Like, that's why I find it fascinating. It's like, why do you have to take so many prerequisites for each school that you go to? Because one thing that happened for me is like every single time that I went to a different school, they would say, we get to decide what is accredited and not accredited. I was like, well, I thought the DOE did that. The Department of Education. They decided whether your school was accredited. And they're like, well, but if you want a degree from this school, you're going to have to do this, 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 and this, and this. I was like, well, didn't I do that over here? Can I show you a proficiency in that at this other school? It's like, well, we don't like their school. We don't know if they taught you the way that we teach it. And it's just like, sounds to me like you're just pining for more money, which is exactly what they're doing. This is why I laughed a little bit, because I was in the military, and so I had what's called TA, and when I got out, I had the GI. And so those two things is like, I'm not paying for this. I can just come here and go to school. I don't care. And I enjoyed going to school because I liked to be able to sharpen my ideas against these so-called people with their PhDs. And I started realizing that the PhD system, because if you look at it, in the military, you have, A1C all the way up to sergeant all the way up to master sergeant, and then you have that higher senior NCO. And then the same thing goes for the butter bar through captain, major through lieutenant colonel, and then lieutenant colonel to colonel and general and all that stuff. But each one was an echelon, no different. And that's why I have this guy down here, is because the merit badge system that I learned in Boy Scouts was here, and it also exists in your education system. And if you think about it, it exists in almost every system that you look at. It's a fractaled system. Just, you can break it down this way. So when someone shows up and says, hey, I'm a general, great. The fun part about my life right now is I can just look at him and go, that's adorable. Now you can kiss the whitest part of my ass. I don't give a fuck what you think. And I hope when people sit there and just go, oh, how dare you say that? Then no one should respect you. I was like, I give everyone the same respect that I demand for myself. And if someone wants to pull their little card out, whether it be a gender bender card or a Black Lives Matter card or whatever, and it's like, this, I'm like, fuck you. I fought for you too. And that's the crazy part to me, is just, all who you are and the things that you accomplish usually go out the window unless you're speaking the crazy political speak of the American acceptance nonsense. And I'm just like, well, where do actual deeds come in? actual accomplishments, not the ones that you pulled out of your butt or that you paid some school to say, I went to this school and I got this piece of paper. It's like, great. Here we go. It's like, oh, okay, these are my pieces of paper, right? And notice how you can't go to school for these things. You can try, but those things up there, that's not something that you're going to ever see on a degree program. So it's like, and that's why I come on here. I don't come on here to talk for hours and hours and hours on end, or to, play the silly game of entertainer. I could have, if I wanted to. I could have gone over to the music sphere, and I tried for a little bit. It just didn't fit. And I had to sit with it, and I had to think about it. And I was like, what do I really want to do? What could I spend an hour a day getting off my chest, walking away, calling it good, and know that there's now an official record left for my son and for anyone else who wants to see it of what was going on in 2022 compared to, 2003, 2001. Compare it to 2012, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. Compare it. 2002 to 2022. It's like, I don't think anyone has had this setup with life. And when I look at the most people, it's been get up, go to work, come home, go to bed, live your whole life in the same place. And that's sad. I remember I went to my 20-year high school reunion, and I would say the vast majority of the people that I talked to never left. They never left. And they would brag. It was like, I can't believe that my little, Bobby or my little Brittany is finally graduated high school this year. I can't believe it's been 20 years. And I was like, that's all you did? That's all you did was sit here and play with babies. Okay. Guess our conversation is over. Because it's like, to be able to talk to people about these types of subjects, that's why I came to the politics section, because politics and religion, I think, are absolutely 100% intertwined, and maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow. And maybe I'll talk about the conspiracy theories of religion, to sit there and say, oh, this is my religion, therefore I am blessed, or I'm sanctified, or I'm chosen, And they're everywhere. They're still popping up. Like when people are wondering, like, where are the new religions? Like they're constantly popping up. Yeah, and I think that's because different people are reaching for a different scenario of existence. And this is why I was like, I wanted America to work. And just like George Carlin said, it's like, I want it to work. But I might have to admit that this experiment is not going the way that we want it to. Hey, what's going on? Tiff Loves Weed. Thank you so much for the follow. Hey, how are you? I'm doing pretty good. I'm just about to wrap up. I know, people come on here for hours, but I only come on here for about an hour a day. But I do come on here every day. And so if you go look at my VODs, this is what I talk about. I talk about AI governance. I talk about the idea that we've outgrown our democracy. Not that, it should be overthrown on any level, but we have tools at our disposal that we should be using. And we can see these in our everyday lives, but we're not being allowed to use them, and we're receiving massive amounts of propaganda saying that anything close to AI is going to kill us or destroy us or shoot us up like the Terminator. And I just fundamentally disagree with that, coming from a background of network engineering and cryptologic linguistics. There's the long and short of what I do. Thanks again for the follow. Another thing I don't do here is I don't monitor hate speech. I don't monitor any of that stuff. I think all speech is free speech. Identifying trolls is something that we should do. Something we should practice. No different than my job was to identify the baddie and make sure that he doesn't get to the people back at home. Another thing that I never do is I never ask for subscriptions, and I never ask for your money. I think, there's too many people out here doing that. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty well off and pretty satisfied with my life. So why am I doing this? Well, I'm doing it for my kid. And I'm doing it because I like to put my feet up. And as soon as I'm done here, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out there, hang out with my kid. We're probably going to maybe watch some cartoons. I don't know. Eat some pizza. Chill out. Watch the beach. Maybe, laugh a little bit. Goof off. He's only like a month old, and he's just getting his head under control. Yeah, so it's quite fascinating to see what he does. But I want to see him learn from this, and if other people can learn from it, I'd like to see that too. I want him to know that this stuff existed when he was born, and that it could easily be implemented easily. And the reason I say that is because that's what I would do. My job was not just any type of typical network engineer. My job was combat communications. So I had the training, and still do, to build networks from the ground up. Like go to a patch of dirt out in the middle of nowhere and build them into existence where they didn't exist. And using those tools and creating things in that way, and being able to understand what virtual servers and virtual machines and virtual everything, and understand how that works, I'm just so blown away by these so-called conspiracy theories today. And that's what someone had asked me to talk about today, was a little bit about conspiracy, a little bit about theory. And I like to separate things because, once again, that was my job, cryptologic linguistics. Is when you look at a conspiracy, the idea that you want to, hide, what you're up to, or what you're trying to figure out. And then theory is basically the first part of any experiment. By themselves, they're great, but you put them together, and what has been propagandized into the mindset of most people, it's almost like their get out of jail free card when any hard question gets asked. It's like, hey, do you think that that's a little bit off-putting? You think that's a little out there? Conspiracy theorist. Now that gives them sort of like that free range trigger to disengage. And it's just like, well, maybe you shouldn't have disengaged with this. One of the things I think is, I was asked was about the election fraud. I was like, election has been being frauded forever. You don't need a computer to do that. It's like, if you can't look at the people that have constantly been put into power as people with like interest with your businesses, I mean, you don't need a conspiracy for that. You just need to go, who has the money, who benefits, and this isn't a we're out there to trick the taxpayer. It's like, no, taxpayer's just going to pay his taxes. That's what a taxpayer does. And then the tax user is the politician who uses the taxes, right? And if they keep a constant barrier between you and that's not a conspiracy. That's not a conspiracy. It's just, no, that's the way they've always operated. And you know what? There was another society that always operated that way, and it was called royalty. And I think that people need to figure that out. And that, the whole war, the Revolutionary War that was fought, that says, hey, we don't want royalty anymore. It's like, okay, we'll have a democracy. That's a fun word to go look up. Democracy. Dem meaning neighborhood, actually. It comes from the ancient Greek, demo, which means neighborhood. And so it's like, when I hear it all the time, our democracy is being threatened. I laugh my butt off because it's like, as you order a pizza from Uber Eats and just put your feet up and ask for your $5 pumpkin spice latte. Okay, yeah, you're under attack. Fuck you. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. I like playing a little bit tunes before I leave, but it's just my way of self-expression. I play a little bit of piano, I play a little bit of guitar, but I don't play all the time because I did receive some injuries from my time in the military, and playing for hours and hours on end is just not something that I can do anymore. So with that all being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you so much for the follow, Tiff Loves Weed. If you like weed, I think that you are already on a good track to deal with 100% of what's going on in politics. So I wish you the best, and I will see you guys tomorrow. That's awesome. You haven't wiped your ass in probably 2 weeks. Well, I wish you the best with that. Thanks for coming and hanging out. First time chat. Purple Palooza. I needed that. That's a good laugh. Hey, I'm only usually on here for about an hour. I started about 11:11. So thanks for coming and hanging out for a second. If you want to give me a follow, that's great. You want to come check me out between 11 and 1 o'clock. Every day I'm here, and every day I'm talking about the concepts of AI. Oh, crap. Is it coming back? Is it coming back? Hey, thanks for the follow, Purple Palooza. Appreciate it. Hey, I'll never ask you for a subscription. I'll never ask you for money. But if you want to come see how AI is about to kick the living shit out of our politicians, you can come check this out. All right, man. It was nice hanging out with you guys. I'd like to give you some more tunes, but, you know, I'd rather go hang out with my kid. Play Freebird. You'll never get my money. No one wants to work. I don't want your money, bud. But I do want you to sit back, have a great time, and have a wonderful day, all right? Thank you, Purple Palooza. I will see you tomorrow.